wish. I mean, I look at my body then and think, ooh, if only. She's muscly and solid and healthy.
All those years on the prairie, I mean, back and forth to the schoolhouse.
Running to school.
Before the world knew her name, before the cameras turned her childhood into legend, there was just a little girl, alone, waiting to be loved. Melissa Gilbert, the heartbeat of American television, the child who carried an entire nation's innocence on her shoulders. She wasn't born into comfort or fame. She was born into silence, a silence so deep it almost became her first language. May 8th, 1964, Los Angeles. A city glittering with dreams, yet colder than its lights. Within hours of birth, she was given away. No mother's lullaby, no father's arms, only papers, signatures, and a promise that love could be written into existence. Paul Gilbert, a comedian whose laughter hid exhaustion, and Barbara Crane, a dancer who chased spotlight more than peace, took her home. From the outside, it looked like joy, but behind those walls were arguments, rehearsals, and the sound of a child growing up too fast under makeup lights. At 6, the laughter stopped. Divorce shattered what little safety she had, and then came the day that broke her twice. Her father, the man who gave her warmth and a name, was gone. They said it was his heart, but later she'd learn it was heartbreak. A sorrow too heavy for him to carry. And just like that, the child who once searched for love learned that even love can vanish without a sound. Yet somehow, out of that ache, a spark was born. At 9, Melissa faced the camera again, not as a dreamer, but as a survivor. The auditions were brutal. She was too small, too plain, too forgettable, they said. Still, she stood there, trembling, freckled, defiant. Because the lights, cold as they were, had become the only home that didn't leave. And then Destiny, a show looking for its heart. Little House on the Prairie. Michael Landon took one look at her and said softly, "That's Laura." In that moment, history began. For America, she became our daughter. That smile, pure sunlight. Those eyes, wide with courage. Every Sunday evening, 30 million hearts found hope in her laughter. But off-screen, she was just a girl, tired, lonely, memorizing lines, while the world watched her grow up. 12-hour days under the burning sun, her small hands read from the cold props of a frontier that existed only on film. When cameras rolled, she ran across meadows. When they stopped, she sat alone in dressing rooms, staring at her reflection. Not Laura, not Melissa, just a child caught between fiction and survival. By 13, she was America's sweetheart. By 16, she was a product. Hollywood doesn't raise children. It consumes them. And when the show finally ended, so did her childhood. The applause stopped. The silence returned. The phones no longer rang. But she didn't crumble. She worked, fought to stay alive in an industry that forgets faster than it forgives. She starred in The Miracle Worker. She led Choices of the Heart, roles that carried the soul of a woman who had already lived 100 lives. And then came love, the kind that glitters before it cuts. Rob Lowe, Hollywood's golden boy. She was 17. He was her first real dream. For a while, they were inseparable, the prairie girl and the prince of the screen. Late night drives, whispered promises, laughter that felt like safety, until it wasn't. When she found out she was pregnant, she thought it was the start of forever. He thought it was the end. The breakup shattered her. And then came the unthinkable. She lost the baby. 2 heartbreaks, one after another. The city moved on. The headlines forgot, but Melissa didn't. That grief became the quiet ghost that followed her for years. Still, she rose. Bo Brinkman entered her life. Wild, impulsive, charming. They married in 1988, desperate to build something solid out of all that loss. When their son Dakota was born, she thought she'd finally found what she'd been searching for her whole life, home. But fame doesn't share. Love turned to distance. Distance turned to silence. And once again, the dream collapsed. Another marriage gone. Another lesson written in tears. Yet Melissa never stayed broken. She carried on, wiser, slower, still believing in love. And then came Bruce Boxleitner. This wasn't lightning, it was sunrise. Steady, safe. They blended families, raised a son, named him Michael, in honor of Michael Landon, the man who first saw her light. For a while, life was calm, real, until even that faded. Not from betrayal, but from time. 16 years together. Then, one night, 2 polite smiles, 1 final goodbye. And that's when she learned the greatest truth of all. Sometimes love doesn't leave because it failed. It leaves because it's done its job. It taught you who you are. When she met Timothy Busfield, love finally arrived as peace. No glitter, no cameras, no noise, just stillness. A farmhouse in the Catskill Mountains, dirt roads, chickens, laughter, and quiet mornings. After decades of applause, Melissa Gilbert finally found what Hollywood could never give: rest. They built their home with their own hands. Sanded floors, fixed fences, planted gardens, and for the first time, she didn't need to play a role to be seen. She said, "Some loves arrive early and burn fast. Ours came late, slow, steady, and meant to last." It wasn't the kind of love that sets the sky on fire. It was the kind that keeps the lights on through every storm. But even peace has its trials. Her body, after decades of endurance, began to break. A fall on Dancing with the Stars shattered her spine. Steel rods and screws rebuilt her. Pain became her teacher once more. Depression crept in. Anxiety followed. She drank to silence the noise, and then came the real silence. Hollywood stopped calling. Misophonia struck. Every sound a thunderclap in her skull. Life became small, quiet, unbearable. But she didn't surrender. She made a choice few in her industry dared. She took off the mask. She removed her implants, the armor she'd worn for decades. "I wanted to feel real again," she said. And when the bandages came off, she saw herself. Lines, scars, truth, and she smiled. That's what survival looks like. Not glamour, not perfection, just honesty. In her 60s now, Melissa Gilbert lives debt-free, surrounded by peace instead of applause. She drives a rattling old Jeep, grows her own vegetables, writes books that heal others because they came from pain that nearly killed her. Her memoirs, Prairie Tale and Back to the Prairie, became lifelines for those who felt forgotten, reminding them that healing isn't pretty, it's sacred. She once said, "I used to think happiness was applause. Now it's the sound of chickens and coffee brewing." And that's the essence of her story. From the silence of abandonment to the stillness of peace. Her fortune may not be measured in millions, but her wealth, it's immeasurable. Because what she has now, she earned with her own hands, her own tears, her own light. As the sun sets over her Catskill farmhouse, Melissa sits on her porch with Timothy. No cameras, no scripts, just 2 souls who found their way home. And somewhere deep down, you can almost hear the echo of that little girl, running barefoot through golden fields, laughing again. She didn't just survive Hollywood, she transcended it. Because the real story of Melissa Gilbert isn't about fame, it's about freedom. It's about a woman who walked through fire, through heartbreak, through pain, and emerged not polished, but pure. A woman who no longer needs the world's approval to know her worth. So if you ever feel forgotten, if life has broken you, if the applause has faded, remember her story. Because some hearts don't shine early, they bloom late, and when they do, they light up the whole prairie.